Have you ever purchased something old from the internet simply because it caught your eye and seemed like a good deal? I did exactly that, and I've regretted it every single day since. My name is Ethan. For the purpose of this story, that is all you need to know. I am 32 years old, living alone in a modest apartment on the edge of Portland, Oregon. My days are quiet and routine. I work from home as a graphic designer, spending hours in front of glowing screens, surrounded by stacks of coffee cups, sketch pads, and the constant rhythmic sound of rain against the windows. The city's weather suits my personality, overcast, introspective, with occasional bursts of sunlight that feel like rare gifts. I have always been drawn to old things, forgotten objects with stories they no longer tell, old books with yellowed pages and faded inscriptions, vinyl records scratched from years of play, small trinkets that once belonged to someone else's life. Collecting them gives me a sense of connection to the past, a way to fill the quiet spaces in my own existence. One Thursday evening in late October, while the rain drummed steadily outside and the wind whistled through the cracks in the building, I was browsing a small online estate auction site. Not one of the big names like the popular marketplaces, but a quieter place where families clear out entire homes after a loved one has passed. These sites are full of hidden gems, items that have sat in attics or basements for decades, gathering dust but holding on to fragments of history. That is where I first saw her. A porcelain doll from the 1930s, according to the description. Hand-painted features, jet black curly hair tied with a faded ribbon, wearing a burgundy velvet dress with delicate pearl buttons down the front. Her glass eyes were a deep hazel, almost warm in the photograph, and her lips curved in the faintest smile. The listing was simple and unadorned. Beautiful condition, no known history. Starting bid $38, shipping included. There were no other photos, just that one image slightly grainy as if taken in haste under dim light. There was something about the way the light caught her face in that single photo. She looked peaceful, almost waiting as if expecting someone to notice her among the clutter of other listings. I paused, zooming in on the details. The tiny stitches on the dress, the subtle cracks in the porcelain that added character without detracting from her beauty. I placed a bid. No one else seemed interested. The counter stayed at $1. I won her for $38, a price that felt almost too low for something so intricate. 7 days later, the package arrived at my doorstep. A plain brown box, slightly dented from travel with no labels beyond my address and a generic shipping stamp. I carried it inside, setting it on the kitchen table. No decorative wrapping awaited me inside, just layers of old newspaper from the late 1980s used as padding. Their headlines faded and irrelevant now. I lifted her out carefully, unwrapping the brittle paper. The porcelain felt unusually cool, almost cold against my fingers, as if it had absorbed the chill of the autumn air during transit. Up close, she was even more beautiful than the picture suggested. The paint on her cheeks had a soft blush. Her eyelashes were fine and real-looking, and her hair fell in perfect curls. I placed her on the bookshelf in my living room, directly across from my desk so I could see her while I worked. I decided to call her Clara. The name simply came to me and it felt right, like it had always been hers. The first night passed without incident. The apartment was silent except for the usual hum of the refrigerator, the occasional creak of the floorboards settling, and the rain continuing its steady patter outside. I went to bed early, tired from a long day of deadlines, and slept soundly. But on the second night, I woke suddenly at 3:14 in the morning. It was not a loud noise that pulled me from sleep. It was a sensation, someone watching, a prickling at the back of my neck, the kind you feel when you are not alone in a room. I sat up slowly, my heart already beating faster than normal. The room was dark, lit only by the faint blue glow from my computer screensaver in the next room. I listened for a moment but heard nothing unusual. Curious, I got up and walked to the living room. Clara sat exactly where I'd left her, yet her head was tilted, just a little, toward the bedroom door, toward me. I told myself it was nothing. Porcelain can shift slightly over time due to temperature changes or the natural settling of the shelf. I adjusted her position gently and returned to bed, though sleep was slower to come this time. The next morning, with sunlight filtering through the curtains, I took a photograph of her with my phone. Just a casual picture to share in an online collectors group I sometimes visited. New piece for the shelf. Any thoughts? I wrote in the post. One person replied almost immediately. She's lovely, but those eyes seem to follow you around the room, don't they? Another added, nice find. Vintage porcelain like that can have a real presence. I smiled at the comments, feeling a small thrill of validation for my purchase, and moved on with my day. Emails, designs, a quick lunch of leftovers. Over the following week, the changes were small. So small I almost convinced myself I was imagining them. It started innocently enough. I would leave for the grocery store or a short walk to clear my head. When I returned, Clara's hands, which had rested neatly in her lap, were now raised slightly, palms facing upward, as though she were quietly asking for something, perhaps a hug or a toy. I would gently move them back, telling myself it was the vibration from the door closing or the building's old foundation shifting. But the next day, the same thing happened again. I began documenting it with more photos, comparing them side by side on my computer. Then came the sounds. Soft breathing, a child's sigh, barely audible, always from the direction of the living room shelf. At first, I blamed the building's old vents, or the wind outside whistling through unseen gaps. But the sounds continued even when the windows were closed tight, and the heat turned off completely. They seemed to happen most often in the evenings, when the light outside faded and shadows lengthened across the floor. One afternoon, while working late on a project that required focus, I left my phone recording ambient noise for no particular reason, perhaps to capture the rain for a soundscape idea. Later that evening, I played it back through headphones. At around the 47th minute, there it was. A faint, childlike voice, whispering 3 words. "I'll play with me." The hairs on my arms stood up. I replayed the clip over and over, adjusting the volume, slowing it down. It was unmistakable, clear enough to send a chill down my spine, but faint enough to doubt my own ears. From that point on, I began closing the bedroom door at night, locking it as an extra precaution, though I knew deep down a door would not stop whatever this was. But the dreams found me anyway, slipping under the threshold like smoke. In the dreams, I was small again. Perhaps 8 or 9 years old, back in a time I barely remembered. I stood in a hallway of an unfamiliar house, the walls papered in old floral patterns peeling at the edges. Flames licked the baseboards, climbing higher with each passing second. Thick black smoke filled the air, burning my throat and stinging my eyes. At the far end of the corridor stood a little girl who looked exactly like Clara. Her dress was on fire at the hem, yet she did not scream in pain or run. She simply reached out one hand and said in a cracked voice, "You promised you would come back for me." I would wake, gasping, covered in sweat, my sheets tangled around my legs. And each time, upon checking the living room, Clara had turned. Not moved across the room, just rotated on the shelf so that her face now pointed directly toward my bedroom door, her glass eyes reflecting the dim light. I tried to ignore it all. I buried myself in deadlines and projects, turning up music to drown out the silence, avoiding the bookshelf as much as possible. But the physical signs grew harder to dismiss, creeping into my daily life like an unwelcome guest. Small scratches appeared on my arms during the night, 3 thin lines each time, like the press of tiny fingernails. They were shallow, not deep enough to bleed, but enough to sting when I showered. There were no pets in the apartment, no rough edges on the bed frame or furniture. I began wearing long-sleeved shirts to sleep, even though the apartment was warm. Sometimes when I passed the mirror in the hallway, my reflection seemed wrong for a fraction of a second. My own eyes looked glassy, like polished glass staring back, devoid of warmth. I would blink and it would pass, but the unease lingered. A faint smell began to drift through the rooms from time to time. Not smoke exactly, but the memory of smoke. The acrid scent of something that had burned long ago and never quite faded. It would linger for 10 or 15 minutes, filling the air with a heavy presence, then disappear as suddenly as it came, leaving me to wonder if it had been real. As the days turned into weeks, I found myself thinking about Clara more often. I would catch myself glancing at her during calls, wondering about her origins. Who had owned her before? What stories did she hold? I decided it was time to learn more about her, to put my mind at ease. The original auction listing had vanished from the site, deleted completely as if it had never existed. No cached version, no trace in my browser history, beyond my own screenshot. I ran a reverse image search on the photo I'd taken. It led me to an old thread on a paranormal discussion forum from 2014. A user had posted nearly the same doll and written, "I sold this after strange things started in my home. Heavy energy. Avoid buying porcelain dolls from estate sales in rural Maine." Maine. The seller's location had been listed as a small town in Maine. That detail stuck with me, a thread to pull. I searched newspaper archives next. It took hours of scrolling through digitized pages, my eyes straining from the screen. But I found it. A fire in Bangor, Maine, in December 1937. An entire family lost. Parents and their 8-year-old daughter, Clara Mayhew. The article noted that the child had collected dolls, spending hours playing with them in her room. One in particular was described in detail. A porcelain figure with black curly hair and a burgundy dress. It matched mine perfectly. That doll was never recovered from the ashes, presumed destroyed in the blaze. My hands shook as I read the words again and again, the implications sinking in. Was this the same doll? How had it survived? And why did it end up with me? The discovery only heightened my anxiety. I began avoiding the apartment as much as possible, working from coffee shops or libraries. But I always had to return, and each time something new awaited. One evening, a friend stopped by unannounced. Mark, someone I'd known since college. He noticed Clara immediately. "Nice doll," he said with a grin. "Bit creepy, though. Those eyes follow you." We laughed it off, but as we talked, he kept glancing at her. Later, he admitted feeling uneasy, like the room had grown colder. He left earlier than usual. That night, the whispers grew louder. Not just sighs, but fragments of sentences. "Stay with me," echoing in the quiet hours. I contacted a local woman who described herself as a medium, found through an online search for paranormal help. She agreed to visit, arriving on a gray afternoon with a small bag of crystals and herbs. When she stepped into the apartment and saw Clara on the shelf, her face changed. She did not touch the doll. She simply stood still for a long moment, closing her eyes, and said quietly, "This is not a child's spirit waiting to be found. This is something older. Something that has borrowed her appearance. It is patient, and it is waiting for someone to stay, to form a bond it can hold on to." She performed a short ritual, burning sage, speaking words in a language I did not recognize. But as she left, she refused even a cup of tea. Her last words before closing the door were, "Remove it from your home. Do not wait, and do not speak to it directly." Her visit did not help. If anything, it made things worse. The scratches appeared more frequently, now on my legs as well. The smells intensified, sometimes waking me in the night. I tried to rid myself of her. First, I placed her carefully in a trash bag and drove to a public dumpster far from my neighborhood, miles away in an industrial area. I dropped the bag in and left without looking back, feeling a weight lift as I drove home. The next morning, she was on the shelf again. The dress spotless, no trace of dust or garbage. The bag was nowhere to be found. Second attempt, I rented a small boat at a nearby lake before sunrise. The water still and misty. I rowed to the deepest part, far from shore, and let her slip into the water. I watched the ripples close over her face, expanding outward until the surface was calm again. 2 days later, I found a single wet footprint on the carpet near the front door, small, child-sized, leading straight to the bookshelf. Clara sat there completely dry, her smile unchanged. Third attempt, I built a small fire in a secluded outdoor spot, away from prying eyes. I poured accelerant and placed her in the flames, stepping back as they rose. The fire roared high. Yet the porcelain did not shatter or blacken quickly. It cracked slowly, almost deliberately, in thin spiderweb lines across her face. Thick black smoke rose, carrying shapes that twisted like distant faces crying out in silent agony. I ran back to my car, heart pounding. When I returned home hours later, she waited on my pillow, untouched by fire, as if the attempt had never happened. Fourth attempt. I wrapped her in cloth and drove to a remote forest trail, burying her under a layer of earth and leaves. I marked the spot in my mind, vowing never to return. 3 days passed. On the fourth, I came home to find dirt tracked across the floor, small footprints again, and Clara back in her place. The whispers were no longer faint or occasional. Every night at precisely 3:17 a.m., a clear, sweet voice would speak from the darkness. "Ethan, you chose me. Now I am here. Will you play? Will you stay?" My cat, who had always slept near me, began avoiding the living room entirely. She would hiss at empty corners, her fur standing on end, and hide under the bed for hours, refusing to come out even for food. Then the messages started. I would wake to notifications on my phone. Texts sent from my own number at times when I was asleep or away. "Do not leave me by myself. I waited so many years for someone like you. You feel like home now. Do not go." I stopped sleeping more than an hour or two at a time. Dark circles formed under my eyes. I sat in the kitchen with every light on, staring at the closed door to the living room, a cup of cold coffee in my hands. But even then, I could hear it. Soft tapping. Tiny porcelain fingers against the glass of the window, against the television screen, against the inside of my skull, like a persistent thought I could not shake. My work suffered as a deadline slipped. clients complained. I isolated myself, avoiding calls from family, making excuses to friends. One night, exhaustion and fear broke something inside me. I walked to the shelf, lifted her carefully, and spoke aloud for the first time. "What do you want from me? Why are you here?" Her head turned slowly on its own. Her glass eyes met mine, unblinking. A voice, calm and childlike, echoed not from her painted lips, but inside my thoughts. "I want what was taken from me, a family, a place that does not burn, a companion who does not leave. Forever." The room spun. Colors blurred. I woke on the floor. Hours later, Clara cradled in my arms like a baby, my fingernails torn and bloody from clawing at my own skin in my sleep, as if trying to escape something within. I could bear no more. The apartment felt like a prison, every shadow a threat. I drove to an old, abandoned church on the edge of town, miles away under a moonless sky. The doors were unlocked, the windows broken and boarded. Dust motes danced in my flashlight beam as I carried her inside and placed her on the dusty altar. I poured water I had brought, blessed by a friend who knew a priest, and whispered every prayer I could remember, my voice trembling. Nothing moved. No sound came. The air grew still. But as I turned to leave, the heavy wooden door slammed shut behind me. Locked from the inside, the handle unyielding. From within the empty church, I heard soft laughter echoing off the walls. I fled, leaving her there. I did not look back. I left the city soon after. New apartment in a different state. New phone number, no social media, no forwarding address. I started over piece by piece, new job, new routines, trying to rebuild. For weeks, silence, no dreams, no sounds, no smells. I began to believe it was over. That distance had broken whatever hold she had. Then 2 months ago, a small package appeared outside my new door. No return address, no postage stamp, just sitting there as if delivered by hand. Inside lay a single piece of porcelain, a broken hand. Attached to it was a lock of black curly hair and a folded note in careful, childish handwriting. "We are not finished playing yet. I will find you again. I always do. I still live quietly. I still work from home. But on rainy nights when the clock reaches 3:17, I sometimes hear it. A whisper, soft, patient, waiting. Ethan, come play, come home." The dreams have returned, more vivid now, the hallway longer, the fire hotter, the girl's voice clearer. If you ever scroll past an old doll listed online, one that looks almost too perfect, one whose eyes seem to notice you through the screen, keep scrolling. Some things are sold empty. Others arrive with something already waiting inside, and once it has your attention, once it has your name, it does not let go. If anything like this has ever happened to you, if an object from the past has ever felt like it was watching, waiting, calling, share it below. Because perhaps none of us are truly alone